Just here because we're really curious and it's super cool. Really? Wow, that's refreshing. Okay, well now you're officially in the group, so everybody here is in the group. So I'm going to let you guys probably give a 1.5-minute intro for each other, because what we want to do is expose what these guys are great at. They're really like long-term influencers in this area in all different ways. So starting with Danilo and Stephen and then Mike, I'll let them introduce and then we'll go through a couple of slides and questions, and we'll get to the middle and do some questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danilo Moura. I'm a co-founder of Loot Interactive. We have been together for almost like 9 years. We started as part of Sony Pictures, doing a lot of virtual environments and letting people socially watch movies together, play games, and we have 8 games across PS4 and Xbox One, and we also have 11 video streaming apps. So I feel like our team has a very unique background where we have a lot of video streaming experience and also game development experience. And socially, we put everything together inside of almost like a Second Life environment inside of PlayStation. And we are very excited to see those things coming back into VR and doing something really cool that I will show in my slides. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Stephen. My background with these VR technologies goes back quite a bit. Around the turn of the millennium, I got my first exposure to these technologies, and I was making a lot of art at the time and saw a huge potential in VR for allowing people just to place things in space and create in space. And I, as part of my PhD thesis, created the world's first VR painting system, which people today call Tilt Brush. I built that about 15 years ago and a bunch of other creative applications for things like DNA design, working with a lab that was doing synthetic biology and things of that nature. Invented the world's first VR lightsaber, the first ray gun, the first VR marking menus, a whole bunch of stuff. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and I grabbed it. At the time, I was like, this stuff is, it's actually, I originally thought professional design app, that's what this is going to be, and midway through realized everyday folks is what VR really empowers. It empowers everyday folks to create 3D digital objects, in ways that just like these confusing CAD tools are just not for everyday people. And so as the hardware price dropped, I began to see an opportunity to bring such a creative system to people. And that's why I put together the 3D Sunshine team. We're a small team based in LA, and instead of art, we're actually focusing on game world building. And we're creating a tool that allows everyday people to, in VR, load up their favorite game worlds, take them apart, rebuild them, basically make game mods super easily. It's called 3D Sunshine. We have a closed alpha coming out for the Vive very soon. It's going to be up on Steam. So if any of y'all have Vives, I'd love to add you to our list for the closed alpha. We have Minecraft support right now, and we have a little bit of Grand Theft Auto support coming later this fall.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Amron, and my background is as a production artist for a variety of production companies such as ILM and Digital Domain. And more recently, I've become involved creating VR content for a few different companies like the Emblematic Group and Ewan Company. There's a piece that I worked on right now at the Getty Museum that's an immersive environment of some very ancient statues from China that we recreated in 3D. And also at the Emblematic Group, I've worked on a lot of character-driven work. My interests are more into, Nani de la Peña's quote is immersive journalism and more realistic type of VR experiences that let you immerse yourself in a world that you wouldn't normally be a part of, such as a refugee camp in Syria, or go to these caves, these ancient caves in China, and feel like you're actually there. There's a few people out there in VR that are creating these kinds of environments and these kinds of experiences. And I find that very interesting to be able to experience something you wouldn't normally experience or really feel like you're there. So
Yeah, that's great. Did you work on the Planned Parenthood project with Emblematic by any chance?
yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about, you know, the way we did that with.
So let's get to that, Mike. I've forewarned these guys, I'm kind of bad like this. I want to keep tracking us, so we'll get back to you about some of the production stuff. Emblematic is, I think, are they an LA-based company or New York?
Well, Nani Pena is the president.
So I experienced the Planned Parenthood demo at Austin at South by Southwest. There's a lot of emotional experiences out there that you can demo, and this one is extremely emotional. Like when they give you the goosebumps, this one does it. So you guys are doing a great job. We'll have you on the next demo. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go through a couple of slides, ask these guys questions. We'll get to your questions too, but we'll try to keep things kind of brief and short because there's a lot of information. We always feel like, you know, you all out there are the value for us, you know, so we want to give you value and trying to give you information today that's getting us kind of past the honeymoon phase and into the let's figure out now how to really plan long term for development. For those of you that aren't developers, there's other, you know, aspects of this that I think will be extremely interesting. So, you know, starting with kind of what we advertised in our abstract. You know, this question always comes up, what will the killer VR app be? And a little bit of context, because this whole theme of this hour is tracking. You know, what defines tracking? Because if we're sitting there playing Pokemon Go, there's two kinds of philosophies of computer vision. One is it encompasses all of the reception and the types of sensors that can bring you data from the outside world and kind of bring the computer information. So, you know, GPS and location from one side of the thinking could be vision. Could be tracking. And so I just wanted to set that context because every opinion is okay. But starting with Danilo and Steven and then Mike, you know, what do you think the killer VR app will be in some context to the immersion, the feeling that you're really having this killer, you know, experience? Thanks, Danilo.
I feel like the app that we are building, that we're going to release towards the end of the year, has the potential to be the killer app, just because we created an experience that sells the ability for everybody to feel like they are a millionaire in the Hollywood Hills. They have like a big TV. They can watch movies, listen to music, do everything that they want, and play games. So it's really integrating a lot of the cool ideas, but in just one space. And the users have a lot of freedom to do everything that they want. And as part of that immersion, that's one of the reasons why I started talking to Mark in the beginning. That goes back like a year and a half, of how we have been for a long time working with hand gestures, because that's when you really feel like you're there, when you have their capabilities. I have been doing things like getting my demo and taking it with me to show to my mom and my sister, and they just couldn't operate the Gear VR. It was very confusing. You know, they barely can use like a remote control, to be honest. So when you talk about accessibility, even being my mom, you know, I try and talk. A lot of stuff, but just it wasn't accessible. So I feel like the killer app needs to be something very simple that everybody can play, almost like the Pokemon Go. You know, it's very simple, but there's a lot of things that you can do, and people just get excited. So I feel like that immersion and accessibility is a key piece of it. And it's like, what do you use your TV for? You know, some people will watch movies, some people will play games. So I think we're trying to give both to them.
Yeah, I don't know, a killer app, I think there are a lot of kinds of applications we're going to see, but an area that I think is going to be really big is creative gaming. So with 3D Sunshine, we're focusing on the creative part, but there are all these other things that are going on the game side of the equation, game worlds that people can modify and create, and I think this future generation of gamers growing up with Minecraft expects to be able to manipulate their game worlds and build their game worlds they want. We see a future where game mods are as prevalent as YouTube videos. The same way we've seen in the past decade a creative explosion of video content because it's so easy to make videos. I think VR is going to make it super easy for people to make their own game worlds to play in and share with their friends. And in 10 years, I think we'll see 1 billion game worlds a year, just like we see 1 billion videos a year. I think VR is kind of all about that. You know, clearly at 3D Sunshine, we're working on the creative side, but we're doing that in collaboration with other teams that are making game worlds that can support creative play. So that's what we're excited about.
Yeah, and the more you can immerse yourself in your experience and have a more natural interface with the environment that you're in, I think is going to be really advantageous for the VR experience itself. So, you know, if you can use your hands to experience the environment around you more, I think that's going to add a lot to the experience.
Yeah, I think I'd go one step further to say it's not just, there are aspects of it that are experiential. My experience with VR headsets is just the novelty dies down a bit, and you spend 90% of your time looking forward, and that experiential part kind of wanes. But the part that never gets old is having more control. You use a Vive, the higher degree of freedom input. You can do stuff with your hands. You can move things around in ways you couldn't before. And earlier, I was talking about hand tracking, 24 degrees of freedom. The Vive, the degrees of freedom is kind of like a math thing, right? If you think of your hand, the position is 3 degrees and the rotation is another 3 degrees. That's 6 degrees of freedom. The hand has so much more information in it. And I think that's the potential of VR and hand tracking, is to take that information and channel it into being able to do things we couldn't do before. It's about control. I think experience is definitely great, and I'm not so much on the cinematic side of things. I'm more about being able to do stuff with the computer. And I think that's where we're headed with all the sensory technologies, being able to do things, and I think that's where we'll see retention value.
Yeah. I feel like it's almost like 3 waves. Like the first time that I saw the DK one, and if you just like look around, it's like, yes, awesome. But there's so many people that I saw like putting their hands in front of the head-mounted display, or looking up and looking down, and they didn't see their bodies or the hand. Just like a frustration, and then they kind of like stay shy. And that was like the first wave. And then the second wave is when they play with the Vive. And then they start drawing on the tilt brush. It's just like that sense of like, okay, I'm here, I can do a lot of stuff. But it's not as precise because you don't have a lot of things that you can communicate with your hand. So I feel like it's almost like we're getting into the third wave of what virtual reality can do, and more technologies will be able to immerse the users further and further.
So yeah, I'm going to keep us moving along here, as I told you. We want to stay on theme here, so just want to make sure everybody sees this slide, right? We're staying on theme. Very good. That was great insight. And the thing for us as a company providing some of these technologies in the tracking sense is probably killer VR app for us is going to be killer UI, UX. It's going to be the hands-free ability to turn off the interruptions when you're watching a movie in Cardboard or Daydream, and being able to just actually turn that off, not answer the phone, not answer the email. So for uSens, we look at the killer VR apps being made by the killer content makers, but we want to provide the ability to kind of have the essence of that real immersion. This one we're going to go through pretty quickly, but it's interesting. There's a lot of numbers. Will the dreamy 150 billion gross revenue forecast come true in 2020? This is analysts years ago forecasting 120 for AR and 30 for VR. That's a lot of money. And if you look at the patterns in the history of video games and mobile phones, we can extrapolate patterns that would tell us this could happen. But I'm here to share my personal opinion, and I think a lot of us share this opinion. We're not quite there yet, and this may not be the year of VR. This may be the predecessor for the year of VR in a few years, but for those of you out there who are new to the ecosystem or not, there's a lot of stuff that can be hyped up, and it's really important for us to be realistic. So, for VR, what is it? For AR, what is it? And the only thing I'm going to lead these guys into, because I'm really curious from their perspective, where will they look to make their money? So for you guys, it would be interesting for a couple minutes each just to talk about where do you think your next 5 years of maybe revenue or income, we don't have to get too specific, but VR will probably be less revenue than AR, but this crowd, we won't see the AR revenue posted. AR is very enterprise right now, and it has been. So they're two different formats, medias, maybe someday some people call them platforms. But starting with Danilo and going across, where do you all see your revenue, and how long do you think it's going to take before we get to a point of mass market consumerism that gets us to these really dreamy, big numbers that people are self-sustaining the ecosystem?
On our company, we're really focusing on VR for now. We feel like for the next 5 years, that's really where we will be able to create a lot of applications and get a lot of things done in the hands of millions of users. I think AR is more related to when a lot of the devices will be in a way that is awesome. My opinion on the current phone, looking around, trying to find stuff, it's okay, but I think it can be much more than that. And I feel like when you have devices like yours and Magic Leap and all of those devices out there, it's probably a few more years, but potentially like in 6 to 10 years, I think AR is going to be the same. So short-term VR, long-term AR.
Cool. Good insight. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know this question. It's really difficult to extrapolate you know, like linearly extrapolate on an exponential curve, or maybe it's not. I don't know. Things are highly nonlinear. The future, ever moving, it is. One part of me is like, what do you mean? We already have the gaming market's already about 90 billion. You know, about half of games right now, you're in virtual worlds and playing in virtual. What we would have called 20 years ago full-blown virtual reality. World of Warcraft 20 years ago was everyone's dream of virtual reality. We already have it. It's already a multi-billion-dollar industry. Maybe not WoW anymore, but games in general that are 3D, I think there are already billions of dollars being made in virtual reality type entertainment technologies. So this question doesn't compute for me. If you're talking about screens on the face, you know, we'll see it. It's behavioral. You know, we'll see the adoption of that. I don't think screens in the face themselves generate the value. I think it's experiences that generate the value, and that's what people pay for, and you know, whatever technologies get them. So that's my non-answer to this question.
Love it. So we're looking at Stephen at the front. Cool.
I'm really interested in character creation and creating natural movements of virtual characters, and we're seeing, you know, pretty good leaps as far as creating virtual characters in VR. You know, the piece that we did with Planned Parenthood were scanned characters, and the uSens device I'm looking at as an interface that'll help us create natural.
Make sure we're staying on theme here. So the next question is an interesting one, and we can go through again this one a little bit quickly, however you all want. You know, what will it take for the world to integrate AR and VR into our everyday lives? We can focus on VR. You know, we like to bring AR up because at uSens we kind of serve solutions for both. But you know, what is it going to take? You know, kind of to get there at the point where really these medias are affecting our everyday life, and even why?
So when you say the world, to me, it's like everybody, and to me, it's going to be when it's going to be as simple as I can put my glasses on, and then AR is going to be here, and that's what I'm trying to say when I say when all the devices are, you know, very simple to put it on, and you can get it, and that's when I feel like yes, you ask your phone or whatever it is, hey, how do I get here? And it shows you all the paths. And so I feel like the devices need to become very affordable and easy to put on and not be that heavy.
Yeah, I guess my vision for the future isn't so much this ambient AR, VR kind of stuff. A lot of it is really entertaining, but there's always this question of which augmented reality do I want to be in at this time. I think for entertainment applications, we're already seeing adoption with things like Pokemon Go. But for things like the hand tracking, I mean, we could see integrations that have nothing to do with the headset whatsoever, and I think we'll see more specialized applications, like maybe there's some, you know, controlling a robot that takes a part out of a car or does something like that. You could see these kinds of control scenarios happening in very limited contexts. I think at least in the next few years, we'll see a lot of growth in entertainment, and we'll see these limited contexts where the kind of advanced control brought about by hand tracking emerges. This sort of everyday, we have like cartoon characters running around, wearing the glasses always kind of thing, has been attempted for 15 years, has been real for 15 years, has sort of failed repeatedly to sort of become something people permanently want. And there has to be some, I don't know what the continental shift that's needed for these things to become that ubiquitous. So I think I'm much more excited about entertainment applications, which are killer. And these like really specialized creative applications like this hand animation one that's being mentioned. You know, I see those kinds of integrations happening a lot. I don't know, the sci-fi vision of just living in an augmented reality is sci-fi. It's fiction, it's great fiction. I think the reality will be a little more, a little different. So, yeah.
Yeah, when AR, VR overtakes watching TV, that's when I think we're going to reach our destination.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, good stuff. So is everybody having a good time today? We're all relaxed. Some of us are working. Okay, well our friends at the council are having fun.
I'm trying to keep this one spicy, contentious.
Yeah, you know, we don't have enough time to really get in the ring, but we will soon. So, you know, this is obviously not trying to be a salesy kind of presentation. We really think that our stuff is great. I've got a lot of respect for Leap Motion, Jessica, the three of us are all competitors in the space of tracking. We need more, you know, I mean, competition breeds quality, we think. So with you guys, what do you think, you know, does tracking make it feel more real? So the question here is really like, in terms of tracking, and it could be back to GPS tracking, it doesn't have to be the stuff that uSens does, but does that move the dial for you guys and why or how?
There used to be a company that got bought up by Oculus called 3Gear, or
happened to
nimble
them?
feet over.
Just bought
They
them,
got
they didn't
bought,
go
yeah.
away, right? What happened to their stuff? I'm
They
sorry.
went away, yeah. He's familiar with it. But, you know, they had a great product that they used Kinects or other depth cameras to be able to track hands. And they were developing quite a lot of apps that were medical. You could, you know, use your hands to, you know, look at a heart and be able to go through all the different ventricles, spin it around. And it was very easy and accurate. And there were a couple demos that let you play the xylophone. And there was a couple game demos. And just the few that they had, you could see the potential. It's really an exciting area, I think. And once you try it and you see it working, you know, you try some of these apps, you can see the potential. So I think it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there's a lot of potential. I'm personally just not a big believer in making it feel real. I spent, you know, over a decade of my life working on this stuff. I've never cared about simulating reality. I think what's exciting is about what else we can do. You know, it's like, does tracking make me feel like I'm in control? Does it allow me to do things I couldn't do? And the answer is it does, but it's like, if you look at like, for example, the synthesizer, right? In the 1960s, people were like, can you make it sound just like a piano? Can you make it sound just like a piano? And by the time that happened in the early 90s, like what you could do with a synthesizer and a keyboard was like, oh, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard Pink Floyd, you know, whatever. You could do a lot of different stuff, whole genres of music coming out of the synthesizer. And I think the same's true. I think people are going to be, with these technologies, fighting and fighting and fighting. Can we make it feel just like reality? That might happen in 30 years, but by the time that happens in 30 years, we'll have so many crazy things we could never do before that we can't even imagine. People are fixated on reality because they lack the imagination to see what no one has ever seen before. So my answer to this is like, yeah, tracking will eventually make it feel real, but before it ever does that, tracking will allow us to control things we've never been able to control before. These are bodies in ways we've never been able to before to communicate with a computer. So that's what excites me.
Great answer.
Yeah, I like that, and to me, it's a great way to make it accessible, as I said before. I think there's a key piece of letting everybody to be able to interact with the machine without having to learn how to use a mouse or a joystick or a controller that has like 16 buttons and stuff. That to say, as a gamer, I like it. It's just like when I try to be an evangelist and try to show it to everybody, I feel like that's going to be a great way to make it accessible.
Yeah.
That's great, and it helps me change the slide for next week, so I'll feel more empowered and engaged. I guess we'll change that. Great stuff. Okay, how do we help evolve this space? We're coming to the end. We'll do a couple questions. We've got only about 12 minutes left, so I'm going to kind of zip us quickly. But how do we help evolve this space? This could be in terms of, you know, previously I was at Unity for a couple years and watching the kind of middleware down to the bottom race to give everybody access to good, you know, capable, all-inclusive game engine. It could be anything. You know, we go to GitHub, do we go, you know, open source? What do you guys think is going to help really move us in this room as developers and makers of things forward together, quicker, or better?
To find ways to talk to each other, you know, and to really exchange ideas and learn from each other. I have to say that after Oculus and Vive were available and we were able to see what everybody else was doing, a lot of things that I felt that couldn't be done, like moving the camera or doing stuff like, hey, no, that's actually possible. So I feel like collaboration is an answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone just like try stuff, build stuff. If you're a developer, creative, build stuff. If you're early adopter, try it. Give real honest feedback to everyone who's working as a big community, which we already are doing by being here today. But also, let's try to get beyond the magic trick. Let's try to get beyond the parlor trick, the, oh, that was exciting, that was cool moment, and let's demand what we call retention value in the industry, something I'm going to use over and over again. Let's demand repeat experiences, let's demand sticky experiences, look for those. Let's not give people all this lavish attention for 1 second of excitement. Let's demand something we're going to use every day. And when people start doing that, support them really strongly, because that's what's going to lead us to a whole new universe of utilization.
Yeah, communicating through blogs and different user groups really helps a lot. People can bounce ideas off each other.
And you know, a lot of us out there use forums and things like that. It actually does make a difference when you interact with a company like ours in our open beta or even behind the scenes to say, hey, this thing's not even turning on. You know, that's good feedback, right? Because we want it to be able to turn on. So this is good insight from again, guys that are in the industry doing this right now. And by the way, these guys afterwards will be available for questions. I'm going to take 2 quick questions from different people. If there's any questions out there right now, you, sir.
I think I went to TED a few years ago, and at the cocktail parties, everything was about deal flow. It was about acquiring companies. And back in the 90s, companies would do wonderful, innovative things, and they would live for a long time, and they would create products and sell products. Now it seems that everything is, that everyone's tempted for the exit, and when they get gobbled up by Google or Facebook, that's the last we ever hear of them. The scientists stay on for a while, they get their stock, and they take off and they buy a sailboat. And it's the turnaround for these brilliant companies and great stuff that's being done is being subverted by the profit motive. And for creative people like artists, they just don't get that. They want to be working with these tools long term and with the developers long term. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, it seems like everyone I know that's involved in an exciting startup is just salivating for an exit at some point. And I don't ever remember that happening in the 90s.
So that's a great question. I know we consume a lot more time than we have right here. Can we chat about that after? But I'll put one thing in here, and then if one of you guys have an opinion, depending on where you're at in this space, we do see some of that. I see less of that. I used to be in the video game space, and then we saw a lot more of that. I think Steve and I worked together in 2009, 10. Saw a lot more of that before. I do see some of that now, but we're based in San Jose, and these guys are all LA based. What I see more of now are people digging in, like these guys, and revenue is what keeps the bills paid. But I see a lot, just personally, I see less of that now. And maybe it's I decided to surround myself with people that are passionate and embedded in trying to do things themselves, dig the trenches, build things. There is a lot of that, and depending on where you're at, I'm going to let one of you guys, if you have an opinion about that, but let's chat about that after. That's a great question. Anybody have an opinion there on the panel? I'm not sure.
I think it's quite a bit of a passion too. Like if you really have a passion and you have more money, you're going to do more of that. If you're just really doing it for the money, there's no way to fix that, right? People who just get a paycheck and...
Yeah, there's 2 kinds of people that wake up in the day, really, when it comes to that. Those that are doing the why, and those are doing the okay, I got to pay the bills kind of thing. Anybody else? I definitely would love to chat about that after. Me too. One more? Anybody? Okay, cool. And we've got time afterwards at the booth. Danilo going to give you 65 seconds. Okay. To go through. Danilo has a couple slides, and then Steve, and they all kind of gave an intro, but I just wanted to make sure they knew, they exposed what they're really doing out there. And if anybody is looking for great developers, all 3 of these guys have got some pretty good stuff going.
Awesome. So on the next slide, okay. This is the 11 video streaming apps that we have done on PlayStation, and those are the 8 games that we have on Xbox and PlayStation. Next.
I'm sorry. And Danilo and his company spun out of Sony as well. So they were a group that was there for years and years.
When we were part of Sony, that's when we created the social viewing experience, that you had a TV that you can watch movies with your friends, but because we had access to great IP, we worked with Men in Black, Ghostbusters, we did a lot of the cool stuff. And that was in a social network that was on the PlayStation 3. There's quite a few good ones coming on the PS4, and we are involved in all of those. So it's going to be a pretty cool thing. And all of those are like VR enabled, so you actually will be immersed. And the next one. This is actually showing the project that we're working on. It's the Hollywood Hills mansion that I was talking about, that everybody can have like a mansion and a view. And on the image on the left, you can see what we have done with the leap motion. And you can see that when you start to dance and enjoy, like having a concert in your house, and you have your hands and you can do the gestures, this is really captured by what the audience was doing and getting how they got excited. The image right here on the top, right in the middle, is we working with Soft Connect. It's a company that got acquired by Sony. They have really good skeleton tracking, and this go back to like 2.5 years. You can see that there's a DK1 over there with something mounted on the top. You can see a lot of cables in here and a lot of cables over here on the leap motion. And I'm really excited about the uSens.